Welcome to the latest edition of the AI podcast. I'm Dr. Marie Oldfield, and today I want to talk to you about one of my number one asked questions. Um, should I use ChatGPT? Okay, let's unpack that whole question. You're using ChatGPT. Why? So why do you need to use one? I've had people say, "Oh, it's my consultant. It just does some editing. I can put everything in it, and it does X, Y, and Z." Okay, so we're assuming then that you know what ChatGPT does and how it works and what it does with your data and where it takes it and how it trains itself. Because without that information, you probably shouldn't be using it. Will it take your data? Will it sell it? How has it trained itself? So the way that large language models generally work is scraping a lot of data and then giving you the kind of dominant popular set of words that come with that. So if you say, return X, Y, or Z, it's going to have a look at what's the next most popular word, the next most popular word. It's not going to look at, oh, you've asked me this question. What can I think about to do with this question? How am I to answer this question? What is the context in which you're asking this question? It's just going to go out there and scrape some sort of an answer. So it could be an answer that's already been put out there in a paper. That paper might be wrong. It'd probably still give you the answer. It could be building a probabilistic sentence for you. So it's going to look at the most probable word or next sentence and it's going to return you that. You might then upload your answer and it might change its answer based on this new data. It's not a source of truth. It's not reliable. It's not consistent. And if it was, that might be a worry because then it might be consistently giving you the wrong answer. It's not doing research. It's not doing anything intelligent. The people that make this sort of software, the companies that make this software, they they have a motive in mind. So this motive is profit. None of these pieces of software are put out there to help you. They're not put out there to make your life easier. They're not out there to protect you, keep you safe, be intelligent. They're not put out there for any of that. They're put out there for profit. If they weren't out there for profit, then we'd be looking at a very different ecosystem of AI products, and we might have a little bit more transparency. The reason people build this stuff is for profit. The same with YouTube, the same with social media. They want you to stay on it. They want you to keep clicking on it. They want you to carry on using it. Now, all of these platforms feed into a fundamental human trait or belief system, and that is how they manipulate you to stay on them. So there's the instant gratification, there's the cortisol reactions, there's the reaffirming of your beliefs, putting stuff in front of you that makes you angry, putting stuff in front of you that makes you happy, changing the algorithm to keep you clicking. We're all quite aware of this. And most of us know that we are being manipulated in some way on these platforms. ChatGPT does the same thing. It wants you to stay on there. What is it doing that helps you? Okay, so people don't want to hear this. But what it's doing to help you is it's allowing you to be lazy and it's allowing you to give accountability away. If you write your own stuff, you have to be accountable for it. You have to stand by it. You have to be prepared to defend it. That's what we do in our doctorates. That's what we do when we publish things. That's what we do when we write our opinions. Opinions are original pieces of work. That's why we write them out and we publish them. What ChatGPT and things like that produce is not an original piece of thinking or an original piece of work. And it's actually really sad that a lot of people are now just having things like ChatGPT just generate absolute, in my opinion, crap and flood the internet with it. And all it is trying to do is get their blog metrics up so they can get more awareness on Google so people will go on their sites. Or they feel the need to keep generating content, but they can't because they're exhausted or they've got nothing to say. Um, and that's fine, you need to take a break. There's nobody stands there every single week giving out new original content because it's hard work. To write published papers is hard work. You don't just come out with them every day or every week. So flooding the internet with this stuff is ridiculous and it's unethical, and it just shows the depths that the internet has kind of plummeted to in terms of your search results being a lot of sales and marketing. Basically, it's not generally information. There might be some sort of a snippet, and then what that leads on to is trying to sell you something. So, my child won't sleep at night. Oh, have you tried blackout blinds? For more information, and if you can't get your child to sleep, we can really help you and we will sell you this, or we're a sleep coach, or we will sell you something. That's a standard sales pitch. It gives you a little bit of information that it sells you something. And you can find that in all the books, the funnel books, the Tony Robbins books, any kind of sales stuff. All of that ilk of stuff is around sales and marketing. And that is what's happening. You're not being given information. Now, a book in a library will give you a viewpoint. It will be some sort of viewpoint. Publishers have to make sure that books are, original, marketable, saleable, and again, we could go into that because the publishing industry at the minute is not helping itself. It's publishing along the same lines as the internet, just dominated nonsense in a lot of ways. The dominant theme and the influences that are being put up there by algorithms artificially inflated, a lot of it is not useful at this point. Now, if you go in a library and you go and look at books, yes, you're going to have curated books, you're going to have certain viewpoints that take you down certain directions. You're going to have biases, etc. But that's why you need to critically think when you're doing your research. Where do you get your research from? You have to look at it, you have to evaluate it. We all did this in history at school. You've got to know what your source is and how to use it. Now, a book doesn't take everything that you're thinking or all your work and then put it into a database and send it somewhere. You take in the information and you form an opinion, then you put that opinion out there. If you're trying to do this with, say, ChatGPT, then not only are you potentially giving it material that it will sell or use against you or use to manipulate you. You could be breaking GDPR, you could be breaking any number of laws. And if you're giving out things like financial information and stuff like that, oh, I can't find a financial planner, let me put my stuff into ChatGPT. Who have you just given that to? You don't know. You don't know what is the company behind ChatGPT? What is ChatGPT? Where is all this stuff going? Who are they selling it to? And even if they sit there and say, oh, we're not selling it right now, what happens in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years? Because let's face it, data is what they want. The Fitbits used to be really cheap because it was the data they wanted. They didn't really care about selling a one-off physical thing because it was the data that mattered, that constant flow of information and data that they could sell. And it's the same with a lot of things now. You buy the car, but the software upgrades are going to cost you more than the car, and the software upgrades you're accountable for, even though you're not in control of. So you've really got to look at this. And the way that ChatGPT works is by making you lazy. And it's by telling you, well, why do you need to write to get your opinion out there and to be published and to be popular? You can just use me and I'll do it all for you. The absolute nonsense that comes out of that thing is unbelievable sometimes. And it's a case of, what do you want to do as a human? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to live your life? All of my stuff is written by me. If you read it and there's a mistake, there's a mistake. I don't care if the grammar's a bit off or whatever. You're getting the general gist of what I'm saying. If you don't agree with it, fine, write a rebuttal. If you do agree with it, great, but that's my work. You're all quoting my work, the people that are quoting it, you're all reading it. That's great. I feel valued, I feel happy, I feel that I'm doing something useful and I'm succeeding in getting my message out there. If I put my work into ChatGPT and said, write me an essay about X, not only would that not work for me anyway, some of my stuff doesn't actually have a lot published on it, so it wouldn't be able to answer very much. But I wouldn't feel accomplished. I'd feel like a fraud. I'd feel insecure. I'd feel like a failure. I'd feel like I had to have something or someone else write it for me because I was incapable. I think, why can't I write English? Why can't I write a small article or a small blog or a short paper? And what that does is it leads to skills fade as well. In order to write well, you have to practice and you have to do it, and that's how you get better. And believe me, I was not great at writing a while ago, but I've done so much of it, I've got a bit better. And I'm not going to say I'm perfect at it, but I've got a bit better. Now, if you don't use these skills, you will lose them, and your ability to express yourself and to write and to articulate ideas and to articulate concepts and to communicate with other people is going to be significantly reduced to a point where you won't be able to communicate properly. And not even yourself, subsequent generations of children, and I've already seen this in my university classes where students just will not communicate to each other, but they'll communicate on Instagram. They'll sit on their phone and talk to people on there, but they can't talk to each other face to face because they just don't have the skills, they don't practice it, and they haven't learned them. So, where do you get to? You can get to a place where people can't critically think for themselves, and I think we're already getting to that point. And then you get to a point where people can't articulate or communicate. Now, if people get in power that want to control people, and this does already happen anyway, how on earth are you going to fight back for control if you can't even express yourself or have critical analysis about what's actually happening in the world? And that might seem like an extreme situation, but what's the point in being a human if you can't really express yourself very well, or you need that level of assistance to be able to do it because you're not practicing or learning your skills? What are you doing with your time that means that you've got no time to actually write properly or speak properly or communicate with people? Is it that you want to spend all the time on social media and YouTube? Because if you do, then you've just kind of linked those two things together, and the platforms are keeping you on there long enough to degrade your skills. And that means that actually they're going to have more control over you because you've got less critical analysis and risk analysis, and you need other people to tell you how to communicate, and you don't want the accountability of communicating yourself, you want someone else to say it. So guess what? That means that people that have got certain viewpoints can then have a lot of followers, and sometimes that can lead to bad results because maybe those leaders aren't the ones that we want to be leading people because they might have a bad viewpoint. There are lots and lots of different philosophical, sociological, psychological issues with um, technology and the way that it's just trusted and it's just used. And that starts from implementing the technology, not reading the terms and conditions, not knowing how it works, not knowing what it does with your data, not knowing how to use it correctly or safely, and then the onward human consequences of skills degradation and manipulation and ultimately potential for control. So when you start to ask yourself, should I use ChatGPT and things like this, you might want to start asking these types of questions. If ChatGPT was that intelligent, then I would expect this is nobody's going to produce software that helps me reconcile my academic expenses that take all week to do, that can integrate with the financial system. One, the risk analysis on that from the financial department is going to be no. And then two, it can't do it. I mean, yes, there's a software. It can take everything out of my email and put it in my calendar if I'm taking a trip. So if I'm doing a long multi-center trip, it will put everything into the calendar. Now that's taking away, and you can argue this, but it is taking away some of the satisfaction and enjoyment of you going out and booking these different things because you've chosen not to use a travel agent and to collate them and put them into your calendar and put them everywhere that you want them. And it can also get it wrong. So it's working on two different levels. The software might get it wrong. The human aspect of it is you've done all this work. Put it in a calendar yourself. Have the satisfaction. Enjoy putting that in your calendar. You've put the work into it. You know exactly what your itinerary is then. You're not going to overlap anything. You're not going to mess it up. You might write it all down. You might type it all out on a document. You know what you're building. You've got control. You're not just going here, book it. Because what you're trying to do there is pay a little bit of money for a software to do it, when actually you could have a travel agent do it instead. So what is the difference between a travel agent and a software? Well, people sometimes see humans as barriers, and then they say, well, the human will keep me talking. that's communication. That's a skill that we need as humans. Like it's been proven that people die if they don't get interaction because they they just don't get anything to kind of, you know, supplement the life force. There's nothing. It's just depressing not to be integrating with people. So you're taking the human away and you're asking a software to do it that may or may not do it correctly. They might or might not know what you want. And then it might kind of book certain things that might be, you know, the most popular thing, but might not be what you want to do. It might not find the hidden gems, or it might just take all the emails and whack them into the calendar. It might do it wrong. It might not get the time zones right. And then you've kind of given over, you know, the accountability and the satisfaction of having done this to tech. So it's about questioning yourself really and why you're using this, how you're using it, what you're using it for. Is it just a bit of a fad? Is it a bit of a, you know, nice to have? Or is it something that you're actually relying on, like a crutch? You know, there's a difference between, even if you wanted to use trip software, there's a difference between planning a trip on software and having ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever AI assistant it is write all your emails or write all your blogs or edit all your work. You know, if you want to write something, you have to do the work. It's your message. It's not the AI's message. And the response to this is, well, the AI does it better. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You might look at it and you might think, oh, it does do it better. No, you've got an inflated understanding of the ability of that tech, and you are giving over your original viewpoint and your words to this thing. Well, I could do it with legal contracts. They're not an original viewpoint, they're boring. Well, when you end up in court with a contract, you would better be sure that you have got everything in there that you need, that you've red teamed that contract, you've thought about that contract, you've thought about every single scenario that can happen, because that's what a contract's for. It's not something that you throw through ChatGPT and you go, oh, I've got a contract now, everybody. Because when you get to court and you're relying on clause whatever and it doesn't exist, because you put it through a tech thinking, oh, it's just boilerplate or whatever, instead of actually writing it yourself and making sure that every single thing's in there, you're gonna have a really serious legal, financial, reputational problem. That's how I build my contracts, by going through all my experience, everything that can happen, etc. I spend a long time doing it. I want to make sure that I'm accountable, responsible, and I've got everything I want in there. The same with all my writing, the same with my skills. I want to make sure that it's right as far as I'm concerned and what I want to express. Giving that over to tech is the same as me going to the random person on the street and saying, "Oh, here's my IP," and you wouldn't, because they might sell it. Here's my trademark stuff or my design review or whatever. Take it. Can you edit it for me? Yeah, because they'll just register it and then they'll take it. It's you've got to understand the risks. And I have this, and it's the most frustrating question I get, because I have this in every single training session and event and talk. Everyone, everyone, and you can't even begin to imagine how many times that is. So what you've got to look at when you're looking at things like, from the basic silly apps to, fun little games and things like that, to big tech that is influencing your life, like your software in your car, your phone, your computer, platforms, apps, social media, etc. They're all there for profit. They are not there for your freedom, safety, happiness. They're there for profit. Businesses work by finding a gap in the market. They work by figuring out if they can make profit from that gap in the market. That's why they launch. They don't launch because they have some sort of altruistic vision. They might start off that way, but ultimately it's about monetizing your ideas. And unfortunately, again, within that process, when ideas become monetized, they can be twisted and they can be taken over, taken control of, and they can be taken in different directions. WeWork is a good example of that, not in terms of being driven in a certain direction, But you can have a really good vision for something, and ultimately a board's going to come in and it's going to sit there. It's going to make different decisions. It's going to want to optimize profit. We saw this with Flybe airline as well. The wrong strategy takes you in the wrong direction, but ultimately it's about optimizing profit. So next time you want to ask, should I use ChatGPT or anything like that, watch this video and have a think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and what the risks are. Please like and subscribe if you like this video. If you've got any other questions, don't ask me this one again. If you've got any other questions or you want me to cover any other content, please do let me know and I will do my best to cover that. Have a great day.